Right, hello Year 7 and welcome to, I think it's part 6 of our ongoing project to build a dam in a box. So I hope those of you who are still going, are still enjoying it. Thank you for all of those who have handed them in. There have been some really good ones. So well done everyone. I'm just going to change the camera position. So here we go, let's just make sure we've got, there we are, there's our model. Now one of the problems I had was I needed to add some green for like the heathers and the bracken which exist on the hillside. So I have got myself a couple of greens. I've got a darker green here. It cost me a couple of pounds. That's for mosses, and this darker green is going to go on the higher slopes, and this is a lighter green called leaf green, and that's going to go on the lower slope. So what I'm hoping is I get an effect that you might see here, where I've got darker green at the top here and some lighter green here, where you have plants, brackens, etc., and grasses, etc. So we're going to do it for this side of the model. So I'm going to do there. So a couple of things that I need. I've got my sponge. Now actually, to make it probably easier to use, I'm going to cut my sponge in half like this, and it's a bit tough to get through the scour part, but there we are. So that means if I've got two colours, I've got two bits to use. All right, you will need some sort of mixing tray, and you can see I've been doing some colour work, so I'm going to use that from yesterday. And I've also got my greys as well from when we first started painting the sides, and more on that later. And of course the last essential item, of course, is a cup of tea. And don't forget, I'm a geography teacher, so just to save time, let's just assume I'm always right. Well, I couldn't disagree more. Right, so when you've got your paint, don't forget, give it a really good shake. Get it all mixed up properly. These are water-based acrylic paint, so the last thing you need is probably just a jar just with some water in, which we can use. So here we are. Right, that's a good shake. And let's take the top off. Here we are. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush in a little bit of water. Here we are. I'm not going to brush it on. I'm going to paint the sponge and then sponge on the green onto my landscape. So first I'm just going to make my sponge wet. So here we go. Let's add a little bit of water here to make my sponge wet. That will just make it just easier to use. You don't want too much. Then I'm going to dip my brush in the paint, and then all I'm going to do is just paint this on here. And that will be enough. Don't have too much. So you might want to have a bit of newspaper handy in case you just have to dab some paint or wipe your brush, etc. Then all I'm going to do is, using this, and you can see the problem straight away, and actually I'll just get my second sponge. I'm just going to clear that up. There we are. So what I'm going to do is dab my sponge so I make it a bit drier. So it looks like what I've done is I've added a bit too much water. So let's just dab away, and then I'm going to have to add some more paint into it. So let's do that. So let's just add some more paint here. Right. We'll have a test dab on the newspaper. Right, we're getting there now. So here you can see it's quite a lot of, I've probably put too much water in, but now what I want to do is just colour where I've got the lighter grey. So I'm just going to dab on, here we are, and I can go over it. And this is meant to be where you get the mosses and the and they're hardier plants which are on the top of the slopes. And I'm just going to add a bit more green, and then all we're going to do is just roughly work our way around the slope. So here we are. So I'm now going to, wherever I've got some colours, I've put some colours of like a brick red and a sort of dusky orange on. That's where I think you'll find the plants, because that's meant to be like the colours that heather turn, etc. In the autumn. So I'm just going to paint here and just add some here. There we are, and then I'm going to continue doing it right the way down the side of this. There we are. And these bits here at the top I can tidy up later, I can paint or whatever, I can trim back, etc. right at the end once I think I've completed the model. So there's the mosses, etc. on the top of the slope. I now need to change colour to do the lower green. So here I've just finished with that one. So if you're using paint, make sure that you put the top on properly, because you don't want the paint to dry in the tub. You want to use that again. Now Revell, they make these paints have an awkward sort of triangular system for a lid. It's quite awkward, so do make sure that it's on properly. Alright, then we're going to twist and open it. There we are, and I think you can see that's a sort of a brighter green, which we're going to use on our sponge now. So I've got the second half of the sponge. There we are. I'm going to paint a little bit of water on it, so I'm just going to clean my brush and fold the newspaper over. So let's just get rid of the other dark green. And so what I'm going to do now, here I've got my brush. I'm just going to put a little bit of water on here, and that's all I'm going to do, because I think I put a little bit too much last time. Alright, so there's the sponge there, and then what I do, I'm just going to dip, there we are, the brush. Don't get too much, you don't need very much. A little goes quite a long way. And then all I'm going to do is brush it onto the sponge. There we are. And then what I'll do, I'll just get a newspaper, just have a quick test. That's it, get most of the water out, that's it, right. And then I can do perhaps, now having a smaller sponge allows you to be a bit more accurate in how you're working. So here we are, so we're going to come on to the lower slopes here. So there we are, you can see I'm building up the green as I go down now. The water, I suspect, is going to come up to here. So let's just make sure that we've got enough to cover the slopes, and I'm going to just add a bit more. I expect you can see all the sounds of summer around me, including radios, lawnmowers, etc. competing with me. So here we are, let's just, there we are, and there we are. So we've got a variety of colours, as you'd see out on the hillsides if you ever were up in somewhere like the Lake District. There we are. Right, so that's that part of it finished for now, and this part down here, there's the dam, this part here, I'll finish off right at the end and show you when we've completed our model. So that's the model so far. The reservoir is going to sit in there, and that's what we're going to have a look at next. So I'm going to put this model to one side and go and get the water effect that we started work on last time. Right, so here we are. Here's our piece of card which we overlay with toilet tissue, and then using a glue we created some ridges. Now I'm not sure if you can see the ridges, but that's meant to simulate the effect of the winds blowing across the water surface and creating sort of small waves. Right, so now what we've got to do is come up with a colour scheme. Now here, and I'll just put let's just put the greens away, make sure that's tight, give them a quick shake before we put them down. There we are. Right, I bought myself blue, so here we are. This is an aquamarine blue, so I'll give that a good shake. And while I'm doing that, I've also got the greys, because within water, very often, up in these reservoirs, the colour of the water's almost got like a bluey grey look to it. So that's what we want to try and simulate. Right, so here's a little a tester pot you can get places like B&Q. It's one I got. It's the only blue really that is suitable. This is a lighter blue, and this will go around the edges. The darker bluey grey water you find in the middle where it's much deeper. So I'm going to give this a good shake. First, and I did use it yesterday, so you can have a look what I did here. I'll take the top off, and I'm just going to squeeze some out. There we are. I'm going to get my brush, and I'm going to just, there we are, just squeeze a bit more out. There we are. Right, oh, there's quite a lot on the roller, so let's just get rid of that onto there. That's good. Right, now it's very, very warm today. This is Wednesday, so I suspect we're all enjoying the sunshine. Now, it's not quite the blue I want, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little of the lighter blue that I used when painting the sides of my valley. So there we are. So what I'm going to do is give that a good shake. There we are. Now this has got a brush in the lid, so all I need to do here is actually just daub some paint on, put this back, and then I'm just going to mix it up to see if I can get it. There we are. That's a better blue, I think, for the edges of my reservoir. So I'm just going to do that. And the good thing about it is the blues don't work, then you can always paint over it, let it dry and paint over it. So, you know, it's just a matter of experimenting to see if we can get the effect that we want. And so what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to paint this around the edges. Okay, there we are. Okay, and I'll just paint this, I'll just go around the edge of where the card is, which will be the edge of the reservoir when we put it on the model. There we are. This will be the lighter blue, so let's, yeah, I'm just going to dab this on here. And then what I might do is just to make sure, I'm just going to get a little water. I'm just going to perhaps get just a little bit of water on my paintbrush, and I'm just going to dab it, make sure I've got into all the nooks and crannies there. So I just go around, and of course if you make it brush a bit wet, have a bit of water on it, it'll be easier to sort of get it into those little hard to get to spaces. There we are. So there we are. So there we are. Right, so that's here's my outside ring of blue. There we are. Now obviously I want to mix up a deeper blue for the middle and then merge one into the other in the middle section. So we'll see how we get on with that. Let's just mix the blue first. Right, so here's my other blue here. So if I let's get some blue here, you can see it's a really rich blue, and not the sort of colour we want, but it's a blue, it's a start, so I'll just put that in there. I'm going to put the lid back on, because paints are going to dry very quickly, I think, in this heat. Right, then I'm going to get the darker grey that I had from before. Put the lid back on the old one. Here it is. This is the one I used to paint the rocks that are in the shadow, etc., around the outside. I'm just going to give it a good shake. So here we go. I'm just giving it a good shake. So there we are. It's shaken up. I've got a brush. So what I'm going to do is put some of this blue. I don't worry about getting blue into the grey, because I'm not going to use that grey again. So there we are. Let's see how that looks. Oh, still quite a rich blue, but we're getting to colour, so I'm going to have to put some more in. And then just keep having a go, see how you're getting on. You can see it's beginning to change. I think I'm going to add some more. Right, that's a bit of, no, I'm still going to carry on, I think, and add even a bit more than that until I get the colour that I want. So there we are, it's there, it's getting a bit of a deeper sort of, there we are, grey blue now, I think. And we'll see how that looks on our reservoir. So here's the reservoir, so what I'm going to do is, here's my reservoir, here's my paint. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put this in the middle. There we are, this is where the deeper water would be, but I'm not going to touch yet. I'm not going to paint up to the other blue that we see around the edges. I'm just going to go, just keep it separate for the moment. Right, there we are. Now I'm just going to put that to one side and put a little stone in and go away. There we are, so we've got that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my brush in a bit of water. Okay, I'm just going to get some newspaper here. So I'm just going to make sure I haven't got too much water on it. And then what I want to do is try and dab this across and get them to merge colours. So now, one of our art teachers would see me now, they'd probably fall about laughing as to what I'm trying to do, but there we are. We can try and merge one into the other, and the idea is we're creating the idea that the reservoir is deeper in the middle. And we continue. I'm just going to a bit more water. I'm just going to take some more water off. Here we are, and the idea is just to blend one into the other. There we are. So, and you just gradually work away around the edge so that one merges into the other. Swapping, and as I remember, don't forget, it's just a matter of practicing and practice. So if you're not happy with the effect you get the first time, you can let it dry and then simply just paint over it. There we are. So we've just got one just beginning to blend into the other. And there are probably a few areas I need to blend it a bit better, such as here. And the water will dilute the blue a bit more there. See the lighter blue coming. So that's not so bad. Right, there we are. And what I might even do is, now I'll leave it for now, but what you can see is if you look carefully, you can see that the paint has picked up some of the ridges which we created, which is the idea that it would simulate the waves. As the wind blew across the reservoir, it would create this waves, and so that's why we've got a few lines across our reservoir, because that's what we're trying to simulate. Now, I had a go, as you can imagine. You can see that my mixing palette was already used. That's because yesterday I created this, and here is the one that I finished from yesterday, and you can see what I've done is I've added a few white tops to the waves to catch the tops of these waves, just to give it a bit more a realistic view. Now, with this, what I want to do now is, I'm not going to leave it like this, but I'm going to give it a few coats of like gloss varnish, and we're going to quite a few coats. In the meantime, I'm going to let this one dry, and show you how we can do the white effect. So that I'm going to leave it for a while. I'll then come back and we'll have a go at this, putting the white on, and then the last thing we'll do is we'll start adding the gloss to this piece here. Right, so here we are. I've got some white paint, some old emulsion white paint. Here's our reservoir, and you can see, I hope, that there are some ridges now. What I am going to do is, using the brush, again I'm just going to take one of our sponges which I've cleaned off. It's quite damp. I'm just going to brush the white onto the sponge. There we are. Okay, so I'll put that to one side. And then on our model, all you do is gently rest the sponge onto the top, and this should mean that the white is picked up by these ridges, these waves that we created when we first made this. So I'm just going to drop it on there. Don't press it down, but just move it across the surface, and it will just pick out some of our, if you like, our wave tops. So we can drop it on. Here we are, and I'm just going to do this. There we are. Let's just see if I can get some here. And in some cases, don't go overboard and try and find too much. And I might actually leave it at that. It's picked up some of these lines that we've got. There's one there that I want to try and pick up, so I'm just doing that. There's another one here, and that actually will do me, I think. However, here you can see that I've got, it's quite a lot, and what I might do is I might just get a bit of water and look to get rid of that slightly. So I'm just going to stop this while I go and get some newspaper. So here we are, I've got just some water. I'll just dry it on my newspaper, so I've got enough. And then I'm just going to try and, there we are, and it begins to, there we are, and I get rid of it. There we are, and I can just leave it at that. If I want to, I've got a spare sponge here, so I can just actually just look to soak it up with the sponge. There we are. And then if I want to try again, I can just put a little bit in place. There we are. And so I'm going to leave that now as it is, wait for it to dry before I can add the gloss coat. So the last thing I'm going to do, here's the one that I did before, that I did yesterday, like I've done. So this one is the one we've just done, and that's drying. So here's the one I've done, and you can see how it picks out some of these lines I did like waves. And then all I've got to do is now just give it a gloss coat. Now some of these paints, you must read the instructions, because sometimes they require you to work in a well ventilated area, for instance. So if you can do it outside, that's great. They might ask you to wear protection. So do make sure you read the instructions carefully, and if need be, you might want to get your parent or guardian to read, and they might offer you advice, or they might be able to help you in another way. Alright, this is one of those, so you have to make sure that when you're painting this gloss coat, you do so in a well ventilated area. Well, I'm outside, that's fine, and you want to try and avoid inhaling the vapours. So we'll try and do that, we'll try and be quick. And then that'll be it, get the lid on it and we'll be away. So I'm just going to unscrew it here. So let's have safety lids. So here we are. Right, there we are. So I've got my brush, here's my lid, and all I'm going to do is take that off. I'm just going to dip in my brush, and then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go across and just put a first coat on. So spread it out evenly. And don't forget, we're probably going to add quite a few layers of this, so we can just do one, get this done right the way to the edge, and that will give the glassy appearance of water that it often has when you look at it, especially from high up. That's what we're trying to simulate here. So instead of the rather dull blues, it's got that glassy appearance, so hopefully it will bring it to life a little bit, especially if we add a few coats. So there we are. I've just done this, and I'll just make sure there we are. So that's all done. So that's our first coat. There we are, and we'll just leave that now to dry, and then over the next couple of days I'll do a few more coats and then show you what it looks like when we finish. So I'll get the lid back on this. Well, that concludes it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Let's see if I can get myself on the screen. There we are. So thank you very much for watching. And as you're working on your model, I will pause the video or wind it forward to the part which you need some help with. But and I hope you're enjoying it, and we'll finish this soon. All right then. Thank you very much, and see you next time.